Hey guys, welcome to the next video in the Intro to Coding series. In today's video, we're going to be going over while loops. While loops, which is a type of loop that you can do in code that can be super useful to iterate over things or count to really big numbers or do anything of that sort. This is one of the first times we need to be a little bit careful with how we code. You're not going to break anything, but you can get into an infinite loop, which means the computer just tries to do something forever. So we're going to show you how to do that and how to get out of it so that your computer doesn't get angry with you. You can't break things for the most part with this, so don't worry about that. Play around, enjoy, practice things, see what happens. So don't be afraid to try new things with this. But this is the first time we're going to get to something that you can do weirder things with. Let's jump into it. Boop. All right, here we are with our while loops here. I have just this going here with this comment, and then everything we have from before up above. So what is a while loop? So a while loop is something that allows you to go over a chunk of code as many times as you want. So remember when we had like an if statement and we talked about how there are blocks of code? This is very similar to that, but our block of code we can run a bunch of times. So let's make a simple example here. So let's make a list called my list, and we'll give it 1, 2, 3, 4. Now with this list, we're gonna need to know the length of the list. So let's type another variable, not my list length equals the length of my list. Okay, now we have the list and we have the length of the list. And then finally, we're gonna need a counter. And we're just gonna set a counter and say that it's equal to 0. All right, so what we're gonna type is while counter is less than my list length. And then we're gonna finish it off with a colon, and then we're going to press enter. And you can see that this is another block. So this is like the if or else statements. And we're going to type print my list counter. So remember how we're getting an index here of this is like the index using these square brackets. So you can get the index of the list. And you can see these are I just commented here just really quickly before, the values of the list there. So here we have my list of the counter. So the counter's value is 0, so it would print the first value here. So how a while loop actually works here is that it will get, so when a code file executes, it just goes from the top to the bottom. So it will create this list, it will get the length of the list, it will set the counter value to 0. It will then get to line 202 here, and it will say, while the counter value is less than my list length, which is 4, right? Do whatever's within the while loop, which is only this right now. Just to prove that point, we'll print a done statement here. So while this is true, do this thing. And then when it's done this, instead of continuing down below like an if statement, it actually goes back to the start. So from line 203, it would finish it. So it's finished with the while loop. It would then go back to the start of the while loop. So it would come back here and say, okay, is this still true? If this is still true, do it again. And it will do that until it's not true. But one of the issues we have here is that this is never changing. Counter is never changing. So this is always going to be false, or this is always going to be true. 0 is always less than 4. So if we run this, we're never going to see done, because it's going to just print 1 forever. So let's see what happens when we do that. So it might look like it's stopped. It hasn't stopped. This is, you can see it's going crazy. there's a lot of ones. It's going forever. So the way to stop this is you can press Control C, and it will basically, it's called a keyboard interrupt, and it will stop your code from running. And it will tell you where it stopped. So it stopped running at this print mylist counter, because, and we can scroll up here, but here's the ones, and we can scroll up and see that there's more ones than there is for the scroll bar. Like the output that can be taken from our code file here, there's more ones than exist for that. So there's, you know, potentially millions of ones that were printed out, maybe even more. So we don't want to do that. That's what's called an infinite loop, and infinite loops are things that can be kind of dangerous in code, because if you're trying to write some code that is going to do something and it runs into an infinite loop, then your code's probably not going to work how it's supposed to. It's not really so dangerous for your computer itself. It's just dangerous in terms of, you know, if you want to have some type of software that does something and now it doesn't do something because it's in an infinite loop, then that's bad. So dangerous to the software, not to the computer. So you don't have to worry. You can practice stuff like this. You can make an infinite loop and remember, use Control C to stop it. Don't be worried about that. Your computer will also say like, hey, something's weird here, and it will help you stop it if need be, probably. So in order to not have an infinite loop happen, what we need to do here is add a value to counter. So we can actually do that by typing counter plus equals 1. So plus equals we haven't gone over before, but plus equals 1 basically just means take whatever the value of counter is and add 1 to it. This is the exact same as if we were putting counter equals counter plus 1. It's the exact same thing. But plus equals is just a cleaner way of writing this, and it's just, you know, it's just shorter. So now if we run this again, now we can see we just print out 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we print done. And this is a very simple while loop. Now let's go over another example of a while loop, and let's go over an example where you can print out the value of a Fibonacci sequence. So a Fibonacci sequence, really quickly, is basically a sequence where it starts with 0 and 1, and then it adds the last two values together. So 0 and 1 added together is 1, 1 and 1 added together is 2, 2 and 1 added together is 3, 3 and 2 added together is 5, 5 and 3 added together is 8, 8 and 5 added together is 13, 21, etc. We're just gonna not keep doing the maths until I get it wrong and embarrass myself. So this is the basics for the Fibonacci sequence. So this is the first value here, or the 0 value. This is the 1 value, the 2 value, the 3 value, the 4 value, the 5 value, etc. So this isn't really something that you can really just make up, right? There's not a simple way to do this just using math. You can't just say like, okay, like 5 plus 3, but also add the one next. Like you can't, there's no way of really typing this out, right? So in order to do this, a while loop is perfect. So let's first use our input example to get some input from the user, or from us. So we're gonna type Fibonacci, and we're going to give it an input of what Fibonacci number do you want? Okay, and then so this is going to convert the input that the user enters into an integer so that it's a number so we can use it. And then we're gonna need a few things here. We're gonna need the last value to be 1. We're gonna need the current value to be 1. And we're gonna need the counter, and we're gonna set it to 2. The reason we're gonna set it to 2 is because if they enter anything where it's less than, or already less than 2, then we're just gonna say that it's 1, because this part of the math is really simple. If it's 0, 1, or 1, then it's at the first three spots. But if it's anything after that, then we actually have to do some calculation. All right, so let's type while counter is less than Fibonacci. Fibonacci, then we're going to do a few things here. The first thing we're going to do is say next equals current plus last. And then we're going to say last equals current and current equals next. Okay, and then finally, we're going to remember to add 1 to our counter. Now let's just really quickly, just because this is maybe a little bit complicated. So we're actually defining this variable inside of our while loop because we don't really care what the next value is outside of the while loop. We just care about it within here because we need something to keep track of the next value. So what we're doing here in the case where, so current equals, let's say 2 and last equals 3 or last equals 1. So the next value then is going to be set to 3, right? Because we're adding 2 and 1. The last value is going to be set to 2. And then the current value is going to then be set to 3. And then this means that the next time we go over the loop and we want to add current and last together, they're going to be set correctly because last will be set to 2 and current will be set to 3. And then we're adding our counter so that we're going to be at the correct value for Fibonacci. Okay, so the final thing we need to do here is print current because this is the value that we're actually always setting to be the next value. Okay, let's try this and see if this works. What number do you want? Okay, let's just try the simple example where 5 is equal to 5. Okay, we get 5.
Wow.
But it's not super exciting. Okay, let's see what happens when we enter 6. We should get 8. Okay, we got 8. What about 7? Oh, oops, I didn't do that right. I added 7 to the end of Python execution. What about 7 when we actually do it right? Okay, we get 13, and then we can try it one more time. 8, we get 21. Okay, great. So, but you know, those are numbers we can easily just kind of do ourselves. So what about the Fibonacci sequence of like 100? So this is the value of when you add them all together for up to 100. We could do 1,000. We might break Python. No, we didn't break Python. So this is the value when you add all the numbers from basically all the sequences of Fibonacci together up until 1,000. So you can keep going with these numbers. Eventually this might fail because the computer can only go so big in terms of numbers, but this is basically just kind of showing or outlining some of the power that you have with a while loop, because you couldn't just do this without looping over the numbers here. And while this is maybe not a super exciting example unless you're into math or you know how you can kind of figure this kind of stuff out, I think it's still kind of important to just illustrate that, you know, there are things you can use a while loop for that you can't do without the while loop. All right, so that was while loops. I hope that made sense to you. If it didn't make sense, as always, please leave a comment down below. If you would like to drop a like down below, that would be super helpful. It's free and it definitely helps the channel out. And while you're down there, if you want to subscribe to be notified for future videos in the series or just other videos on the channel, then also feel free to do that. And if you want to be extra notified, you can click the little bell and it will notify you better, I guess. Honestly, I don't click the bell on too many things myself, but if you want to, by all means. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we're going to go over for loops, which are actually more widely used than while loops, but equally powerful. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Remember, never stop learning.